Hey everybody, today we're going to be taking a look at MB-25 Endymion, which is the counterpart to this guy, Acteon, for the AMTS space exploration set. In case you're not familiar, AMTS sets are always two vehicles that pair together to form a giant robot. Acteon will be making an appearance in this video off and on, but today we want to focus on Endymion. For this review, I'm going to be talking about what comes in the package. I'll show you the transformation demo going from box to shuttle mode. We'll talk about figure details, a transformation demo into their combiner mode, Moonwalker, and I'll give it a box grade and wrap it up with some final thoughts. Just a quick note, this is sort of a hybrid vehicle with characteristics of a rocket ship and a shuttlecraft, so throughout this video I'll probably be using those terms interchangeably. Alright, we'll go ahead and get into it, starting with the package details. So first thing I'll note is they actually named the designer of this vehicle, and it's a dude by the name of Andrew Lewin. I hope I'm not butchering the pronunciation, so I have to apologize if I did. Normally they credit the design team, whether it's X2R, Metal Commando, or whoever else, so it's cool to see some credit where it's due. Andrew did an amazing job with this set. Lots of production details, they show some different combiner modes, and one thing to be said about Acteon and Endymion is their combine mode works both ways, which is a first for AMTS vehicles. You can either use the shuttlecraft as the upper torso and the arms, and Acteon as the legs, or vice versa. And for this review, for brevity's sake, when I get into the transformation, I'll be showing Endymion as the lower half. Another cool thing about AMTS vehicles is they include a lot of adapters, which does actually give you a ton of different ways you can configure these things if you're into Frankensteining parts from different figures together. We're writing details around the package, and since they recently retired the brand, here's one of the last times you're ever going to see a Megabox logo on a package. The whole line is soon to be rebranded as Infinity Box, which is a whole other discussion that I'm not going to get into today. It comes with a backdrop insert, which I think is very nice. I'm going to leave that right here for the rest of the review. You've got instructions, catalogs and things, a box charger insert, and those adapters I mentioned. Pretty typical stuff, but also included is, caution tape. I have no idea what you would want this for. Maybe it's a deal where 52 Toys has caution printed on so many figures, they finally decided they need to include official caution tape to reinforce what you should be cautious around. I don't know. Let's clear some stuff out of the way here. With regard to Acteon, we'll do a couple of points of comparison here between these two for just a bit. For one, Acteon comes with an identical insert. They're sold separately, of course, but clearly intended to be paired together. It would have made sense for me to have these two separate pieces of artwork that meet in the middle to make a wider panoramic piece that could be joined together in the middle or something. They didn't do that, obviously, and I feel like that was a missed opportunity. And another thing that's unique to these two figures as AMT's vehicle sets is they're, of course, the first sets that are sold separately, and also the first set where the two vehicles really are counterparts to each other. So you get these two together and it really is like a little action vehicle set with completely different functions and not just a couple of similar vehicles. All AMTS vehicle sets are on the theme of a given terrain, and every one that came out before these two are functionally pretty similar in roughly the same proportions. So it's an interesting first to have a fairly boxy all-terrain utility vehicle and an elongated rocket shape. Alright, moving on, I'll show you how to transform Endymion from its box mode into its vehicle mode. I think this one has a really cool box design, definitely one of the nicer looking ones in my opinion. And it's amazing that they got this shape to transform into a rocket. So you got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Little danger graphic there. Pretty cool looking all the way around. The thing I love about this box mode is its symmetry. It's pretty uniformly shaped all the way around, and a slight optical allusion to a trapezoid shape. These grooves on the sides and graphic lines really reinforce that look. Of course, it's a cube and it fits right into its box charger. Anyway, we'll go ahead and get this thing transformed. The first thing you want to do is splay out these rocket quarter panels. We'll just disconnect these like so and bring them out in sort of a windmill formation. Essentially, you're working with the top half and the lower half of the vehicle. We'll straighten these pieces out and give it more clearance so we can maneuver that a little more easily. We're just going to separate it out. Bring this piece up like so, separate it out. After that, we'll rotate these entire sections around 180 degrees like so, same on the other side. And you've almost got this whole thing together. Now it's just a matter of rotating a few more things around and fastening the rest of the pieces in place. Now we're bringing these joints up and they'll fit neatly inside these quarter panel slots. Then these halves come together and connect in the middle. They attach with these little grooves that are sort of like little teeth. Now the thrusters need to be flipped around 180 degrees. These joints are a little tricky. I'm not totally clear on exactly how they need to be positioned in the final mode, but it doesn't totally matter once you get all the pieces together because it's not really going to affect how it fits together on the back half. I'm going to go ahead and rotate them around for a little more visual uniformity. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I'll pull out all these stabilizer fins, and these connection tabs interlock together. This one's a pretty straightforward transformation. Once you get all the pieces lined up correctly, it's pretty intuitive. Transforming Endymion into box mode is a bit of a different story because those quarter panel hinges are actually double hinges, and you have to know how to position them to be able to get them to complete the cube form. which I'm not showing today, of course. Maybe that's something to demo in another video. Anyway, that's about it. You may need to do a bit of scrunching to make sure everything's lined up correctly, but it's pretty straightforward and a very slick looking rocket. Endymion gets its name from a not particularly well-known character in Greek mythology. The CliffsNotes version is, he loved the moon and was the first human to observe all of its phases. Alright, that's pretty clever. And the goddess of the moon, Selene, loved him back and wanted to grant him eternal youth. And apparently someone didn't get the memo and instead put Endymion into an eternal sleep. And in my own misreading of whatever the true original tale is, as it applies to this figure, Endymion is a hypersonic interplanetary shuttle who's asleep at the wheel, which is kind of terrifying when you think about it.
Sacre bleu!
One way or the other, I do appreciate the depth of detail 5-2 Toys puts in the name of their figures and giving them a connective backstory, and I think that's a cool name. As far as the vehicle, there isn't really much to speak of. You got a cockpit hatch here, and for the most part, that's actually about it. In true AMTS fashion, it has a lot of cool details, has 3mm holes in various locations where you can attach accessories, but as far as the standalone vehicle, this is pretty much it. One other cool thing you could do with this figure is, like all other AMTS vehicles, it's compatible with these tiny little figures called Dionauts, which are from a completely separate line. Close the hatch and you're good to go. We'll talk about styling for a bit here. I really dig the graphics on the exterior. There are some nice circular patterns on theme that are complementary to Acteon's design. Explore and stylish large text. It's interesting that the shuttle is split in half. I guess you could imagine that these are fuel lines to the rocket engines or something. Around the back of these stabilizer fins, AMTS logo, and the ever-present caution graphic, which is on almost every Megabox or Beastbox figure. In this case, you do need to exercise caution. Be careful out there, fellas. Space is dangerous. Endymion also has this tile pattern, which is a nice realistic touch for a vehicle that would have to re-enter Earth's atmosphere. More nice imprints on the bottom and that huge 5mm port. Now as far as how you can display this thing, obviously you can have the rocket standing up on a launch pad or on a flat surface, and that's about it. It doesn't lay on the ground very well, which is not how you would probably want to display it anyway. You can put it in a flying position on a stand, but there again, because it only has a 5mm port on the tip of its nose, it's pretty poorly balanced against almost the entire vehicle's weight. So even as far as using a stand, you don't have a whole lot of options. Whether you want to pose Endymion facing you or sort of up and away, the most stable position will always need to be at an angle. Something else I want to point out here is that's kind of the way the character is built by design. Even in the instructions, it doesn't show a whole lot that you could do with alternate modes. They suggest other combinations, but that requires pulling the whole thing apart, and even at that, it's questionable about what you could do with it. What's shown is pretty ambiguous. So as far as the different codes, most of what's being shown here is essentially the rocket being transported in one form or the other. They show a sort of crawler mode for Acteon. That mode is disappointing, and I'll show you why. You have to get the figure's wheels flattened against the ground, and you're using the payload as a launch platform. I found this configuration really hard to get the platform to hold Endymion completely straight. At least as far as what's shown in the instruction book, the wheels aren't attached to the side, so it doesn't hold together securely, and the platform can barely hold Endymion's weight. In practice, that mode isn't very stable, so it's a little surprising 5-2 Toys would show a configuration that's this unstable in the instructions. In my opinion, you're better off sticking with what works best, and that would be the radar dish doubling as a launch pad. Something else I want to call attention to is the cockpit's painted windows. That's a first for AMTS vehicles. Every other vehicle has transparent plastic used in their cockpits. So for me, the sticking point about this space exploration set is they raised the price by a pretty significant amount. Prior AMTS sets were about $45 or $50 for the pair, or about $25 a piece. Asking price for this space set, and again, these are sold separately, is $35 a piece, or you'll pay $70 for the pair. That markup is almost the price of a third vehicle. I do think the joints are nicer and the quality of the plastic feels better, but I would also expect that for that asking price, at minimum, you should be getting the same attention to detail and components as what they've done in the past. So when I see something like this with these painted windows, to me that looks like they just cut corners. And with that price difference in mind, I think this is unacceptable. As far as this shuttle's overall style, I will say it looks absolutely amazing. Their engineering blows me away as always that they could get something in this shape that looks this cool out of a 2-inch cube. But looking at it up close, you'll see huge gaps in the midsection of the fuselage all the way through it. The back end could be considered creative license, though a visibly hollowed out cargo area kind of breaks its believability. On the backside, the entire rocket assembly is only held together by these stabilizer fins, and it's ironically not especially stable. Gaps between the four sections are clearly visible, and it's prone to shifting around when you pick it up and manipulate it. Okay, now we're going to get these guys transformed into their combiner mode, Moonwalker. First thing you want to do is separate all that out, all the core pieces. I'm just going to pull that apart. It's going to come up and out on those hinges and splayed out about like that. Then we're going to swing these C-shaped joints out to the sides like so. From here, we're going to get them at about that angle and rotate these front panels around so that they're facing together. So you're going to want to have in position about that configuration, and from there here, we're going to rotate these pieces around 180 degrees so that the white panels form the shins of the legs, and we'll collapse the fins. Now we're going to reveal another one of those cleverly hidden functional parts. This reveals the feet hidden inside the quarter panels. In order to do that, you can push on the thruster on the side and that'll pop the little extra piece out and it'll rotate around. Then you can drop the little feet down, and the same on the other side. So the back sides of the legs seem like a bit of an afterthought, at least as far as the instructions go. It's pretty ambiguous on what exactly you're supposed to do with these parts and how to position them. You can't really connect these parts to anything else, and with these large parts left hanging in midair, weight distribution is definitely going to be a problem. This is my first time transforming this pair into Moonwalker, and it's possible I'm missing an important step or two, but so far I'm finding it much harder than it should be just to get this thing to stand up. We'll get this 5mm port out, not the easiest to get a hold of, so I'm going to recruit this tiny little implement. Something else that's disappointing is this is the first AMTS vehicle that at least half of it leans into parts forming to form the combiner mode. This assembly is very easy though, so we'll pull apart the legs, the central arm, the radar dash assembly, and you'll just transform these pieces separately. We'll fold the head back and rotate this piece around so we can get at the claws in the back end. You're just going to accordion the arm and fold it down against the center beam, similar to how you transform it from vehicle to cube mode. Now we'll rotate the disc around because this is actually its face, and it's a totally unique design. For the legs, you want to collapse the wheels just like you would going from vehicle to cube mode. Then you're going to rotate it around 180 degrees like so to reveal a shoulder. Then you're going to bring the elbow down, flip the claw around, and you'll also have these filler pieces that fold into the middle of the forearm. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be for. And we'll repeat the process on the other side. Collapse in the wheels, rotate that shoulder 180 degrees, bend the elbow, flip the claw around, fold out those gap filler pieces, and you got yourself a pair of giant robot arms. For the cockpit area, we're going to bring this piece straight down like so, and bring the roll bar back and up. We're going to collapse this piece up and in like so, and bring the roll bar forward and over that heads-up display. This is another one of those neat little hidden tricks with what's otherwise a very Spartan, straightforward vehicle design. You got these undercarriage halves that are going to fold out sideways. They could be floppy, but they smartly position these little levers to insert into these slots and add structural support. And here's another hidden part. You'll just pull that down like so, and the payload is going to fold straight back just like so. Now we'll put it all back together. Attach the arms, put the head back on, and now the legs and torso. And you've got quite a large robot here. I've got to pan my camera up just to get it in frame. I want to say it's impressive with some caveats. Again, this is my first time transforming it, and I did it in camera, and I'm not finding it very easy to stand up straight. It'll take more fiddling around for me to figure out how to balance this thing properly. And again, it's big. By comparison to our boy Unis, Mr. 7-inch action figure here, Moonwalker is probably about 10 inches tall. All in all, I think it's pretty damn cool. It's just going to take more time to figure out how to pose this thing. Okay, so I had a little more time to fiddle around with Moonwalker and pose it for some photos for this review, and I wanted to get a bit more detail on this. I'll start off by saying this is not the worst combiner robot out of the entire AMTS vehicle series. I think that honor goes to another guy, so I had intended to do a review for every set I own, and I'm not sure if I'll get around to all of them, but if I do, I'll definitely tell you which one of those is the worst. As far as this one goes, it does have some decent posability. You've got a decent range of shoulder movement, and it can bend at the elbow. Unfortunately, it doesn't have elbow rotation, but you do have that shoulder rotation from its transformation. So if you rotate it forward, you can actually turn the arms inward. The articulation is a little bit unconventional, but it totally works. Its wrist can swivel, the head can turn left and right, tilt sideways, and tilt down. The legs do have forward and backward motion, can turn sideways somewhat so you can have the feet splayed out. Pretty decent range of motion there. One ongoing issue, and this is something I still haven't figured out what to do with, is this back half. It really should have been designed to either fold up and be like a backpack kind of thing, or collapse and become the back of the leg. I don't know, but I feel like they should have done something different with it. As far as its combiner mode, the weakest part of this is without question the torso. It's attached there pretty firmly, but this port is pretty weak. There's nothing holding it in position, so it's way too easy for this thing to flop around. And what ends up happening is you gotta figure that's really hard to stand up straight. A lot of the poses I've been able to get this figure in really amount to having it hunched over slightly, so not really the best design. I mean, you can get it into some cool action poses, but it definitely takes some work. For my money, I think that takes way too much effort to manipulate and get into good poses. Even now I have it standing up straight, but it's cocked in an angle and it keeps wanting to flop backwards. In my opinion, that's a major design flaw. I think they should have done something else with that connection port to hold it in a more rigid position. It's not bad, it's quite posable. Moonwalker is a really good figure. It's just that between the torso joint and the odd leg kibble, it has a couple of glaring design flaws and it takes a lot of messing with to get this thing to do what you want. So yeah, definitely not the worst of the AMTS combiner mode robots, but I wouldn't characterize Moonwalker as the best of the bunch either. Now it's time to give Endymion a box grade. This is my rating system of 5 points possible in 6 categories for a total score of anything between 0 to 30 points. 5.2 Toys never fails to mine culture or science as a way to make their character designs more relatable. As with Acteon, Endymion gets its name from a story on Greek mythology. In this case, the character was an observer of the moon, but somewhat humorously, he was also put into a coma by the gods. 4 out of 5. It has decent modularity to convert into different modes, but as a standalone vehicle, and particularly a shuttle, you get a single cockpit hatch and that's about it. 2 out of 5. Transformation is for the most part straightforward, although converting Endymion into box mode can be pretty tedious due to the way that its midsection joints need to be positioned. 3 out of 5. Like I mentioned before, the vehicle mode has a single hatch and nothing more. Shuttlecraft are of course single-purpose vehicles, moving stuff from A to B. And to be honest, I can't imagine what else they could have done with this figure. 1 out of 5. As with Acteon, its plastic and overall build quality feel like a level up from a lot of prior releases, although the wobbly torso joint for Moonwalker and stabilizer fins of the shuttle leaves something to be desired. 2 out of 5. So is Endymion fun? Well, its vehicle doesn't have much going for it, and it doesn't really have any alternate modes other than combining into Moonwalker. It's a fine display piece, but even at that, it's pretty limited with how you can display it. But on the plus side, it does make a great display piece. 2 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 14 out of 30. If you want to revisit my Acteon review, I rated that vehicle much more highly than Endymion. But here's the plot twist. When the space exploration set was announced, I was actually a lot more excited about Endymion, and to be totally honest, if I were forced to choose between one or the other, even considering my own box grade, I'd pick Endymion in a heartbeat. Why, you might ask? Because rockets are frickin' cool, and Endymion is no exception. I hope you enjoyed this review. Feel free to shoot me a comment and let me know what you think about Endymion or the space exploration set in general. Likes, shares, and subscriptions are always greatly appreciated, and in the meantime, have fun wherever you are. I'll catch you in the next one.